Welcome back to MSK Innovations. I'm your host, TJ Halverson, and today we have another great event lined up with Gyder Surgical, Voom Medical, and Tesa Medical. Now, before we introduce the panel, I'd like to thank our sponsor of today's event. It's Orthopedics This Week, and for over 20 years, OTW has brought you the news. And this summer, OTW is going to be launching a private community for clinicians and industry to discuss, debate, and collaborate. So stay tuned for more on that announcement from Orthopedics This Week. Now, moving on to our panel, we're welcoming Gary Stevenson, Matt Likens, and Chris Lyons. Everyone is actually a return guest to the panel, but we'll allow a quick introduction. So why don't we lead it off with Gary Stevenson from HealthPoint Capital.
Thank you, TJ. Happy to be here. My name is Gary Stevenson. I'm a managing director with HealthPoint Capital, which is a private equity firm based in Southern California. We invest only in the musculoskeletal space. Some of you may know me from my 20-year career at MB Venture Partners in Memphis, Tennessee, or maybe you've attended our musculoskeletal Ventures conference. We've had 23 years of that, so this year will be our 24th year. It's October 27th and 28th at mnbc.org, so I hope to see you there. Thank you, TJ.
Thanks for joining us, Gary. Matt Likens.
Yeah, thanks, TJ. I spent early part of my career with J&J and then 23 years at Baxter Healthcare in blood collection, transfusion medicine, dialysis, variety of other clinical applications, and then 3 startup companies, the most recent of which was GT Medical, based in Arizona, but had a radiation implant for patients with operable brain tumors. And I think it's a significant step forward. Retired from that 2 years ago, and now I advise early stage med device companies.
Thanks, Matt. Really appreciate you coming on today. And last but not least, Chris Lyons.
Good to see everyone. So Chris Lyons, CEO of Southern Metrics Consulting. Been running that business for almost 9 years now. Prior to that, about 28 years in industry between Smith & Nephew as well as Medtronic Spine, running the M&A division there in the spine and biologic business for about a decade. And everything that we do today is help companies business lifecycle manage all the way through their exit, regardless of where I meet them on their own journey.
Great. Well, thanks again, Chris, for joining us as always. Now, before we jump into the first presentation, just a quick note, MSK Innovations is not a broker-dealer nor an investment advisor. This venue is for informational purposes only, not to be considered investment advice. Conduct your own due diligence prior to making any investment. Now, with that, we will get this started with Sujit Nikay from Gyder Surgical. Sujit, take it away.
Thank you, TJ, and thank you to MSK Innovations for this opportunity and to the panelists and for everybody else on the call. Thank you for listening. So my name is Sujit Nikay. I'm the CEO of Gyder Surgical. We have developed the world's first pinless and imageless hip navigation system. We are raising $3.5 million in this round to primarily grow our commercial business in the US. So the most important problem in hip arthroplasty is to place the acetabular cup correctly into the hip socket. And if you don't get that right, it can lead to a bunch of post-surgery complications, such as dislocation shown on the top left image, where the entire prosthesis can come off, or cup liner wear, which can lead to cup loosening, impingement, and other issues. Now, many of these complications require patients to undergo a second revision surgery, which is typically riskier, certainly longer, and more expensive. And we estimate in the US alone, it costs an extra $2 billion to CMS and to insurance companies to cover these revision surgeries. And globally, this is an even bigger problem. Now, currently, most surgeons globally, when they are placing the cup in the hip socket, they actually freehand. So they're using their surgical judgment, a different set of heuristics depending on the surgeon and the country that you're talking and exploring. And there's a lot of studies that have shown that with freehand approach, the cup angles are missed more than half the time versus the target that they are trying to place in. And alternatively, they often use fluoroscopy. So, for example, bringing in a C-arm, taking shots. Now, this is, as you can imagine, disruptive to the workflow. You have to wear lead, you have to pause, take shots, and often most surgeons are skipping this step in many cases. And so that's a central issue. Now, clearly, robotics and traditional navigation have clearly demonstrated improved cup accuracy, and the use of that is increasing. But very importantly, it doesn't really make the overall surgical workflow easy. In fact, it's adding a lot of complexity. You have to now bring in a massive hardware system, depending on robotics or traditional navigation, monitors, and all that. So it's taking up a lot of footprint. It's a bigger problem now with a lot of surgeries. In fact, more and more surgeons are doing hip surgeries in an outpatient setting where you have less space. And certainly, you do not eliminate any of the other requirements like using fluoro. And so we believe at Gyder that this is an overkill. In fact, it's like bringing in a bazooka to kill mosquitoes. And another issue with all these systems in the market today is they all require a legacy pin-based approach where pins are metallic pins, which typically are 16 centimeters long, are inserted into the patient's pelvis to create an anatomical reference landmark. And then depending on the technology, you attach optical cameras, arrays, or overlay with imaging for navigation. Now, use of pins has been associated with a lot of patient complications, fractures, local inflammation, pain. Often pins break and the distal end of the pins remain in the pelvis. If you look at the FDA's MOD database, there are a lot of reports around that, and we believe, and this based on conversations with surgeons, this is a very underreported event. Now, the combination of imaging and pins certainly adds costs, more disposable stuff, makes the registration process more complex, and not surprisingly, it takes a lot of time. And so if you look at the US market, according to WOS, less than 12% of hip surgeries are using any of these technologies. Now, we at Gyder believe there's an alternative approach. And so when these set of issues were being described to Bob Lai, who's an Australian inventor in Sydney by a hip surgeon, he immediately thought about miniaturizing airline navigation technology. He's a former Qantas engineer, and so that was the genesis of Gyder, and also eliminating pins and imaging. And so Gyder's approach is using an orthopedic brace, essentially a tripod-looking device that sits on the three anatomical landmarks which create the anterior pelvic plane, and then electronic handheld navigation monitor is attached to this brace. This device can be put on the patient temporarily just before cup impaction to create registration and create that anatomical reference landmark. And then the device is removed from the patient. The electronic monitor is then attached to a standard cup impactor, which for the first time now also creates the ability to provide real-time navigation during cup impaction. And we have IP protecting this. It's also implant agnostic. So how does this work? Before the start of surgery, the surgeon palpates the ASCs and attaches these single-use pre-sterilized markers. The surgeon then uses a ruler to size the distance between these anatomical landmarks, which is then used to adjust the size of the brace. So the brace itself can be fitted to individual patients. The surgeon then inputs the target angles based on their preoperative planning that they want for the patient. And then just before cup implantation, this device is put on the patient. You press OK. The software captures the anatomical landmark, the APP, or the anterior pelvic plane. The device is then removed. The monitor is then transferred to a cup impactor. The surgeon aligns the angle of the cup impactor, and when it aligns with the target, the monitor lights up, so it's very intuitive, and then you can impact the cup in. So it's pretty straightforward, simple workflow, really minimal disruption to existing workflows, and it also preserves surgeons' preference in terms of implant. We did our first commercial paid cases with Dr. Paul Lombardi, a leader and a high volume KOL in New Jersey at his ASC. And this is following FDA clearance. And his feedback was incredibly positive. He finds it accurate. minimal additional time added. And again, he's one of those surgeons who does 8 to 10 cases a day. So this is perfect for his workflow. And he loved it. He continues to use it. We have also done, prior to this US commercial start, we have done cases in India and Australia. And the goal was really to test the usability of this device in different market settings. And really what it has demonstrated is that the device has a potential to be successful in multiple markets. We are going after a large market and growing because of aging population. We are starting with the anterior approach, which is the majority of cases now in the US and Japan, and we have a posterior indication development. There are also massive tailwinds. For example, CMS announced a mandatory program that they plan to launch next year, the CJRX bundle, which will hold hospitals and ASCs accountable financially for any post-surgery complications within 90 days after surgery. So again, the requirement for technology adoption is going to grow. Patients are increasingly demanding these technologies. For example, Dr. Lombardi posted his case on his Instagram, and now he's getting patients who are asking for GYDER system. We have also demonstrated clinically the accuracy of the device is very similar to what you see in the marketplace with competitive systems. And we have tested this on a wide range of patient profiles, low BMI, high BMI, a different set of, a wide range of waist to hip ratio. Very importantly, we have demonstrated that the device is on an average taking 2 minutes from calibration to registration. It's very fast, and this is we believe, one of the biggest differentiation of this device and highly appealing to high volume surgeons. We are commercializing with a straightforward razor blade model, consigning the instrumentation, which is reusable at no cost. And then there's a single-use disposable kit, and we're charging that, using that to charge per procedure and for the use of that consumable. There is no other maintenance or hidden costs. Surgeons are eligible to utilize a CPT code for use of imageless computer navigation. So that certainly is an added incentive for driving this adoption. And there are many competitive advantages, particularly in ASCs, when we compare with robotics or other traditional navigation systems. So no upfront capital costs, no financing requirements. We are not tying this to the implant usage. And certainly we are minimizing the amount of disposables. And as I mentioned, it's fast, very fast, critical when it comes to high volume surgeons who are now doing these surgeries on an average 30 minutes. And whereas robotics certainly is adding substantial amount of time. And very importantly, we have also been able to demonstrate in all these markets that we are able to train surgeons and staff in 1 to 2 hours on site. So no cadaver or sawbones training required. And they're up and running using the device the next day. Commercially, our priority for the next 2 years is to have a controlled launch in the US, which we have started in February, and then a full national launch at AAOS next year, and then we'll expand into Australia. And then we anticipate a posterior indication development to be complete, and then launch in additional markets, and then global expansion. And for the next 12 months, just very specifically, we have built a very robust surgeon pipeline, high volume surgeons, and a wide range of profiles. Some of them are technology users, former robotic or navigation technology, and some of them have never used technology. For example, Dr. Lombardi doesn't prefer any other technology. And so we do find this, this potential for our technology to have a massive, expansion into the wide majority of the market, which is currently not using any technology. And we are approaching this market with a hybrid sales model, regional distributors supported by GYDER specialists, clinical development specialists, and then we are having conversations with strategics on potential commercial collaboration as we move forward. Part of this round is also investing in a couple of post-market studies, which we absolutely find it critical to accelerate VAC approvals as well as to drive commercial adoption. Strong management team with deep orthopedic experience from DePuy Synthes, and board, which is highly experienced both in India and Australia. In terms of clinical advisors, we continue to expand, and we anticipate announcing expansion of our clinical advisory board, particularly in the US with some KOLs. So again, a team which really understands the business, has been in the business, and has a track record of executing success in the space. We've been very, very capital efficient. So prior to this round, we have raised 8.5 million so far, of which million plus was in non-dilutive grants. And with that, we have achieved regulatory approvals in US and Australia. We have achieved our first commercial sales, and also advanced a second indication. And then this round will be focused on commercial expansion in the US, including a post-market study. We do plan to utilize another grant opportunity to fund our posterior development. And even at highly competitive pricing, our gross margins are expected at 80%. Even with low production volumes, we are approaching north of 70% gross margins. And it's a pretty reasonable sales ramp. This doesn't assume additional growth drivers, for example, potential collaboration with a large strategic, which can change the trend very quickly. And while it's not a primary goal, we also see a reasonable pathway to become cash flow break even in about 2 years' time. Finally, to close it out, we are raising 3.5 million. We do have strong insider support, with half of that being underwritten, and we're looking to close the balance there. And primary use of those funds will be for commercialization, so inventory, commercial team expansion, marketing, all the usual stuff. And then, as I mentioned, we are in advanced stage of applying for a grant in Australia, which, along with some R&D tax benefits, will fund our posterior development. So collectively, we do believe that this positions us very well for getting into partnerships and future acquisitions with strategics, and in a very capital efficient way. So I'll close it out to say, strong team, strong story, highly differentiated product. We are commercial and looking for your support and interest in being successful in the US market. Happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thanks, Sujit. All right, panel.
Yeah, good job.
Thank you, Chris.
So I was going to jump in real quick and just ask, so the 3.5 million raise, at what pre-money is that? Because I'm sure all the investor attendees would love to know.
Yeah.
And how far does that 3.5 million, not from a project standpoint, from a timeline standpoint, take you through?
Yeah, great questions, Chris. So we are finalizing the term, but I would indicate that it's going to be somewhere just below $10 million on a pre-money. And so some of the terms are being finalized, but that's the ballpark number. And so it's pretty attractive valuation given the stage of the company. And we do believe, as a combination of the grant and what we're doing, this provides us a pretty robust runway for 18 months to 24 months.
Okay, that's great. And I have one more, and then I'm going to turn it over to the other guys. What's in the disposable kit?
Yeah, so the disposable kit consists of a pre-sterilized single-use clamshell that houses the navigation monitor, which then is attached to the brace or the impactor. And especially designed, it's patent protected. One of the unique features of that clamshell is it isolates the force of impaction and from getting transmitted sensors, which is what it provides our ability, and frankly, the only solution in town which provides the ability to provide real-time navigation angles, cup angles during impaction. Every other system, you have to take off the sensor, or if you're using an image-based technology, you have to pause, take shots, or look at the monitor screen. This is really providing that ability for surgeons to focus on impaction, be very efficient, and get it done.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe I could.
Go ahead, Matt.
And Chris, sorry, but Matt, just one more
Yes.
thing. And Chris, there are a couple of other components like single-use markers and ruler that are also pre-sterilized, but the primary one is the clamshell.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, so quick question. How much revenue per procedure are you counting on?
Yeah, so we are targeting an ASP of $700 roughly, and certainly we have gotten traction with numbers that are north of it. which provides pretty high confidence on our ability to get that targeted ASP.
And how many docs are you going after in the U.S. market?
Yeah, so initially we have just built a pretty high confidence pipeline of 9 surgeons, and we are talking with multiple other surgeons. So these are confirmed. There are pricing proposals in front of the respective hospitals or ASCs, and as we ramp up, certainly more and more will come in.
Okay.
So, Gee, most of my questions have to do with distribution. So, because you're implant agnostic, it's literally any one of the major companies out there could distribute the product. Whether they would or not would be a good question. Do you need case coverage? Well, first of all, how many commercial cases have you done so far? I think that was in the earlier deck, but I didn't see it today.
Yeah, just below a couple of dozen, right? We are just
Okay.
ramping up
Okay.
commercial paid cases. So, we're just ramping up, Gary, and this is a controlled launch. So we are being very thoughtful. Interestingly, so I've been talking with multiple strategics, some of the largest players, and they acknowledge that there is a gap in having a technology that specifically services ASCs and outpatient centers, that small footprint, speed, and all that stuff. The pinless and imageless component is highly attractive, differentiated approach. So we are having conversations with them. The general feedback, and there is interest. In fact, some of the distributors have gotten permission to carry the signed distributors, and some of the other distributors that we are signing up in our pipeline have already obtained or are in the process of obtaining permissions from their respective leadership for the large strategics, to carry our product. So that's another good sign. And in general, I would say that the feedback has been that they certainly want to see repeat usage, and a few more surgeons before we sort of take the conversation into a more formal discussion.
Do you does the product require case coverage? Do you have to
Not
have,
really.
not really? Okay,
Not
so
really.
you teach them and they can do it without,
Yeah.
that makes a difference because 5.6 million in revenue for 2027 takes a lot of cases at $700 per to
Yeah.
get there. And so
Ab-
case coverage is required. That can be a rate limiting challenge.
You're spot on. And so our experience is, supporting cases for the first 10 to 15. Make sure the staff, particularly in ASCs, the staff is typically very good. In the hospital, we may find a little bit more support, but that is sufficient for the staff and the surgeon to be well situated. And so a little bit of regular in-servicing would be sufficient. But at the same time, we are partnering with distributors who do carry hip implants. So, typically we expect them to be in the cases, not for our technology, but certainly will be, part of the support ecosystem.
Thank you.
I have one last question, just real
Chris,
quick.
we gotta jump to the next one.
All
Maybe we can
right.
circle back at the end or
Okay.
drop it in the chat and Sujit
Okay.
can answer that.
Yeah.
Go.
But Sujit, great presentation. Thank you for coming on.
Well, TJ, can I
Yeah.
just say congrats on the capital efficiency. I love that to have accomplished so much with so relatively little capital at this point. Really admirable.
Thank you, Matt. And thank you all.
With that, let's move on to Voom Medical. I'll pass it over to Duncan.
Terrific. Can everybody see my screen?
We've got
Yes.
it.
Lovely. TJ, thank you very much. MSK Innovations. Appreciate the opportunity to present today and obviously an opportunity to meet everybody on this call. Voom Medical Devices is an orthopedic foot surgery company offering minimally invasive solutions. What I'd like to present to you today, and I'm going to do this in about 9 minutes, TJ, just to stay, right on time for everybody and opportunities for questions, is we're an orthopedic medical device company focused on minimally invasive surgery for bunions. We offer the only approved orthopedic bone screw that is patented for this procedure in the entire world, along with patent issues around our techniques. Our secret sauce is married into what we call a Bunionplasty procedure. Again, it's issued patents around our implant, issued patents around our techniques that drives much better patient outcomes. We were approved in 2023, 510(k) approval using a predicate device from Wright Medical, titanium screw. We had stub year sales in 23 of $1.2 million. We then went on in 24 to build this to 4 million. Last year, just under 8. We're targeting 15 this year. Our ASP is over $4,000. We have elite gross margins of 85%. We expect over time, with some pricing pressures expected as we grow, that we should be able to hold 80% plus. We have a hybrid go-to-market system whereby we have 4 regional W2 sales reps, along with our VP of sales that oversee today 59 signed distributors. So this is about 30 days old. We have now more distributors. We have over 200 accounts, ASCs, hospitals. We're in Kaiser. We just got into HCA. We're on the tail end of getting approval at Ascension. And so we have the wind at our back with some key partners. We have done over 3,500 procedures with 300 plus trained surgeons in the United States. So we are really in scaling mode at this day. The company was founded by the world-renowned surgeon, Dr. Neil Blitz. He is arguably the most renowned surgeon for bunion surgeries in the world. Collectively, he's done over 17,000 cases, more than the top 10 surgeons in the world combined. It is a very large market in the United States, TAM of $5 billion. Frankly, half of that is for parties sitting on the sidelines waiting for a solution like ours because of high complication rates, difficulty of their procedures, as well as the pain and time on recovery. So we offer a solution that widens this market opportunity. Again, we have a host of US patents that are issued, many internationally, secondary patents as well. And what we bring to market is a MIS company where we have other products in development in the forefront and midfoot of the foot associated with MIS solutions. We are seeking a $10 million Series C round that will get us to profitability in early Q2 of next year or late Q1, so about 12 months out. We anticipate roughly a 20 million revenue run rate in Q4 of this year. We have already been approached, just so everybody is aware, by 3 of the largest strategics in the world, the likes of the Stryker, let's say. We've had meaningful discussions with many of them. We know that for 2 of the 3, the moment we're at 20 million revenue run rate, they are looking to move forward. We also know that based upon the valuation metrics in this extremity space with high margins, you do see much better takeout events. We anticipate that over the next 18 months, 12 to 18 months, a realistic offer could be on the table that would deliver 100% IRRs for people investing today. So seed level type returns, late stage investment opportunity. So what is a bunion, a hallux valgus? It is a bony bump on the side of the foot, the side of the toe joint. It's due to a misalignment, however, of the metatarsal right here. And it comes in all sizes, small, medium, large, severe. Many of our competitors' solutions only deal with large or severe. Our solution addresses every single bunion shape, size, and stage. It is one that affects about 70% of women, 1 out of 4 people, adults in the United States, so 65 million people. And for over half of those that have a bunion, 56% it's bilateral. Our solution, the Bunionplasty solution, is one that is able to address a bilateral surgical solution same day. We're the only ones in the world capable of doing that. But here's today's options that exist. And there's about just under 500,000 procedures a day that are done. It is a large open incision for many of these cases. 5 inches, unsightly. This is not what patients want. They want minimally invasive. They want plastic surgery type of scarring, or no scarring, should I say, post-op. But the solutions that exist today also really are done 3 ways. There's about 8 companies. There's 8 different types of equipment that are used, but 3 primary methods to treat a bunion. The first is right here at the MTPJ joint, the metatarsal phalangeal joint, first MTPJ surgery. That's fused. The second method is what we heard of as a Lapidus procedure. Treece pioneered their Lapiplasty procedure, went from 60 million of revenues to a $1.3 billion market cap. Today, of course, they're suffering in a lot of ways that I'm happy to address. But the last way that this procedure is performed is actually an osteotomy. It's a cut right here in the metatarsal. You realign the metatarsal, you insert hardware. All of our competitors' procedures, what they have in common is very high complication rates, 46 to 78% from the literature. These are not minor complications. These are non-unions, metatarsal explosions, nerves being pulled out, very long recovery times. They all have 2 to 8 or 10 pieces of hardware, mostly extramedular. So the patient feels it under the thin skin of the foot, postoperatively and in shoes. And so that is complication. 2 of these 3 methods fuse a joint. You don't want to fuse a joint here. You limit mobility, you create arthritic issues down the road. It is painful. It does not deliver the type of patient outcome that is sought. And ours is an osteotomy cut with a single screw solution that I'll show you momentarily. All of our competitors' procedures put you in a cast, crutches, or a boot postoperatively for 2 months. We are the only solution in the world where we walk all of our patients, over 3,000 of them to date, 30 minutes post-op, right out of surgery. My fiance was one of them. 6 weeks later, she was running 25 miles a week. She was walking her daughters to school the next day, half a mile. So this is a very different procedure, very different outcome. Now, the competitor procedures take about an hour and a half to 2.5 hours to do. Ours takes even a first-time surgeon about 30 minutes, experienced surgeons 20 to 22 minutes. That means the surgeon is able to do a throughput of 2 to 3 times the volume on an OR day. Surgical centers make 2 to 3 times the money. Hospital accounts make 2 to 3 times the money. Relatively the same CPT codes for billing. 100% medically necessary, 100% covered by private payer as well as Medicare. This is what our solution looks like. 3 tiny 1 centimeter incisions, 2 weeks post-op. 3 months later, these are invisible. We have 1 screw that goes through the metatarsal after it has been cut. This is a 2-dimensional image, but what we have is patents around the cut that is called transveron. It's a unique blend of a transverse and a chevron procedure that have limitations. One offers no rotational stability. One fixes rotation, but it doesn't allow you to address the metatarsal head and rotating it for the sesamoid joints. Ours does. We also have a procedure that resects this medial ledge, where almost all patients complain with a striker screw solution, for example, because every other screw solution requires 2 screws in their IFU. Ours requires 1. A second screw gets placed in this image right about here, prevents the surgeon from resecting this ledge, leaving a pseudo bunion, a prominence on the foot postoperatively that patients complain about. It also yields compression. It creates a higher metatarsal explosion rate. It has such strong fixation that you often end up with non-unions. Ours is a very different outcome. We have less than 3% complications with our procedure, very minor. And we treat over 98% of bunions that Dr. Blitz will treat, but over, all of our surgeons, about 95% of bunions can be treated with our procedure. This is part of the secret sauce, our patent-issued orthopedic bone screw. It is a dual zone screw, but we've got it for multi-zones. You'll see the proximal and distal ends of this screw have different threading in the pitch compared to the central portion, which is half the diameter of the proximal and distal ends. So every thread here in the middle goes through the same thread in the bone as the proximal and distal ends. It's a non-compression screw. It has a beveled head, so it lies flush with the bone on the last turn of the screw into the metatarsal. There's no prominence for the patient postoperatively. But what's important about this and what is distinct in our claims is that we have very broad-based claims that protect this screw because this screw is designed specifically for the metatarsal bone. The metatarsal bone has 2 different types of bone morphology. It has cancellous bone and cortical bone. And so where the proximal and distal ends end up is in the cancellous bone. The middle portion is cortical. So think of holes in Swiss cheese. There's a tighter density and smaller holes in the cancellous, in the cortical bone in the middle versus the cancellous bone. This allows us to have approval for a single screw solution. It allows us to have incredible fixation, but it also allows for micromobility. What we brought to market in early last year, is We moved from a tray system that required autoclaving in between each OR procedure, 40 minutes of downtime, to a single-use disposable sterile kit. That sterile kit has all of our guide wires, instrumentation, all disposable post-op. You add the implant, which is our Revcon screw, and then also a disposable guide. This guide was ideated, brought to market in a total of 10 months, commercialized. It addresses the 3 hardest steps of this procedure, the MIBS copilot, and it handles the translation of the metatarsal, the rotation of the head and holding it, and the targeting wire to get the wire and the screw through the bone at the right plane. Later this year, we are launching a glamour toe procedure, which is a hammer toe driven procedure that we've branded glamour toe. Over 70% of bunion patients have hammer toes, usually 2. We envision that it's a $700 to $1,100 ASP, incremental revenues in line with the procedure for the patient, for the surgeon. Everybody makes more money. So our entire kit and system is designed around greater sterility, greater patient protection, turning ORs faster, not utilizing operating staff, the team at the hospital to autoclave systems. We're really building a system that affects everybody vertically for profitability and better patient outcomes. This is what you see. Our patients literally 3 months later. You cannot see the scarring. And you'll see here the screw goes through the metatarsal and there's regeneration. We're the only company that has actually been able to document and show through 5 published papers. We're bringing our 6th to market that will launch probably in the next 60 days on JFAST, peer-reviewed, on our single screw solution. But radiologically, pre-bunion on the left, surgery immediately post-op. 3 to 6 months later, you see this new bony formation. That is because your body regenerates bone through secondary bone formation. And that secondary bone formation lays down new callus bone because of micromotion. It sends signals to the body that it needs healing. When you have strong fixation, even stronger, rigid fixation with 2 screws, that signaling doesn't happen to the body. I'm going to pass by this slide. We have 1.1 million surgical candidates in the US, 65 million people diagnosed, but many of them reach the point that they need surgery. Half of them go through with it, which means 600,000 do not. And they don't because of the pain of the procedure, the physical look of the procedure postoperatively with these large open incisions, complication rates, time off of their feet. Our solution addresses all of this for people. Treece went public with 11,000 procedures that year. We've done 3,500 to date. We envision that there's a great opportunity for us to see an exit event in approximately a year or longer if we want to grow this with 2nd, 3rd products. We've got an incredible team led by Dr. Neil Blitz. My background is I've built 5 companies in consumer health over the years, 2 that have had exit events of 20x for investors. My very first company, a diabetic meal company, was funded by Steve Jobs of Apple Computers. The 2 Campbells that you see on this screen are not brothers. They're brothers from another mother. They were employees and first line executive team for Skeletal Dynamics, a hand extremity company launched by the world-renowned surgeon Jorge Orbe with a unique set of surgical techniques married to a plating system. Those 2 guys, Dustin and Trey, ran sales and commercial ops to build that from $500,000 to $100 million plus. Deepak Rahansa, down on the bottom right, is a college friend of mine from Washington University. He was the very first employee of Treece. He's the one that took him from 0 sales to IPO exit. So we've got an incredible team, 25 employees. Obviously, we've got a surgeon-oriented website, Voom, Bunionplasty for the patients. What's unique about this year for us is we've just recruited away from J&J, the woman who ran all of patient marketing, handing patient leads to practitioners for breast augmentation products, those that have undergone mastectomies for cancer surgery, those that are undergoing augmentation for other reasons. Previously, she was with AbbVie, marketing the Botox product for chronic migraines. We believe the next phase of our business, much like Treece was very successful at, is creating patient awareness, patient demand for what a patient is looking for. Minimally invasive, no surgical incisions that you see postoperatively, quick recoveries back on your feet, and very low complication rates. We believe with 10% market share, although we only need 2 to 3 to get to a real exit event, 10% market share at a compressed ASP is a $400 million business, multi-billion-dollar outcome. Again, we're launching a second product line. We've got others in the mix down the road, and launching all of our direct-to-patient marketing later. We're in over 35 states that you see here today. We've raised $20 million of equity capital to date, $5 million of debt. We have a $12 million annualized run rate, and we've got, obviously many of the things we've talked about here, from surgical cases, surgeon training, and a key point of difference: minimally invasive, no joint fixation, quick regeneration, day one walking recovery. And this is what we look like moving forward. We anticipate 15 million this year, moving to 30 million the following year, maintaining 80+% margins, and we're seeking 10 million. We have 13 different VCs deep in diligence. We expect several of them to put term sheets on the desk in the next few weeks for us. Most of the VC players that you think of and that you're experienced of in this space are actively in diligence, including JPM, Signet, Wyndham, and a number of others. And so 1315 Capital. So we're deep down the path of bringing a term sheet to the table to fund our next round of growth, where we think Zimmer, DePuy, Acumed, Stryker, Smith & Nephew, and some of the others are our takeout partners. Thank you very much for your time.
All right. Thank you, Duncan. We've got just a couple minutes left for questions. So Gary, Chris, Matt, probably got time for maybe
I'll go
one
first this
question
time.
each.
Yeah, I'll go first this time. Just a quick question, Duncan, on the subject of revision procedures. So what does a revision procedure look like with your implant?
I am not aware of anything that has been from our surgeons that a patient has had to undergo a revision. Not
Okay.
one case out of 3,500 cases. We have actually performed with our surgeons revisions on Trees hardware, dual screws, removing hardware. But our procedure has very low revision rates. Naturally, of course, Gary, we don't have access to every patient data because of HIPAA reasons, but we do have a lot of active communications with our surgeons where they post their cases to our kind of system for feedback, amongst surgeons. So we get good feedback from our, distribution sales force and our sales team as to how things are going with patients.
Mhm.
It is one of the cost-saving elements that we offer to hospitals and to ASCs of our procedure versus others.
So two questions. One is this a one-size-fits-all screw?
No, we have about 12 different lengths, 2 millimeter in diameter. Naturally, there's a bell curve, roughly 48 to 56 millimeter is traditionally what you see.
And Dr. Blitz is the CEO.
He is.
And is that the plan? Is to remain as CEO, or he's also a practicing physician, right?
He does practice. He operates 1 day a week. He is probably working harder than the rest of us, Matt. Surgeon hours. I will tell you that I think Dr. Blitz is working 80+ hours a week on Voom alone. He is 100% committed, has been since day one. He keeps his hands dirty in the OR. One, I think it's important for respect in training and bringing on board new surgeons and having that kind of authenticity in the market. Two, he's out there testing and designing other products for the company moving forward as well.
Thank you.
All right, Chris, we got time for one question here.
Okay. I love the slick targeting device. I must say this. The thing that I'm curious about is it increasing or decreasing the amount of C-arm utilization shots?
It's a great question. So we have a portable C-arm that's in the procedure. And yes, it's a fluoroscopic machine. It is used vibrantly and often during even the C-arm application, which takes 2 minutes to put on, 2 minutes to take off. Every other device is the size of a basketball, as you know.
Oh, yeah.
Paragon, everybody. 20
Yep.
steps. Nobody wants that.
Yep.
Surgeons have all complained. Just give me the 2 or 3 hardest steps.
Yep.
I don't know the answer to that question, Chris, and I'm not going to bluff you, but I will get an answer for you. If on a free hand versus a MIBS copilot guide surgery, whether there's less fluoroscopic images.
Yeah.
What I will tell you about it, because I appreciate your comment that you like the jig. Hodges Davis, the developer of Wright Medical, he's on board
Yep.
and part of the M&A team at Stryker. He has spent an hour playing around with our device, and he said it is the best device he has ever seen to perform a bunion surgery ever in his entire history.
It stands out. It
Yeah.
stands out. And so you're passing a guide wire through it and then running the drill through and then the screw.
That's right. I can
Okay.
send everybody offline your follow-up request a 15-minute video on how to do the procedure with the jig. But 2/3 of our surgeons use the jig. It's designed for the everyday surgeon who does 1 or 2 cases, not the whales that do 100 cases a year that love to do freehand.
And is it 100% podiatrist?
No. We've got plenty of MDs behind the company as well.
Okay.
All
No,
right,
thank
guys.
you.
Well,
Good
Duncan,
job.
thank you so much. Great presentation. And Sean Cogan with Tesa Medical, thanks so much. Let's jump into our last presentation here with Tesa.
Thanks, TJ, and appreciate the opportunity to return to MSK, and congratulations to Duncan and Sajid. Great presentation. So I was on MSK about a year ago. We've made some really nice progress with Tesa Medical, and we're a sports medical company. We're focused on precision for sports ligament procedures. We're focused around the knee. We're doing cases already in Australia, and we're going to start doing cases in the US with an amazing advisory group as early as the end of this month, which is exciting. And we're also in the process of raising a $5 million equity round at 11 million pre-money. We've got 2 million committed already. We've got term sheets signed, so the round is actually kicking off. So it's good timing. Appreciate TJ reaching out. For those who don't know much about sports medicine, ACL reconstruction is a really high volume market. It's also a really challenging surgery, and for largely all of sports medicine, but particularly in the knee, surgeons have to use manual techniques. Despite the volume of both literature and procedures, when you look at the outcomes, over 40% of patients won't return to their prior level of activity post-surgery. There's anywhere between a 10 to 20% revision rate, with 20% focusing more on specific patient populations in the literature. And if you're a female, you've got an 8 times greater risk of revision surgery post. And obviously there's a rise in female sport at the moment. So there's a real problem here. When you look at the literature, the problems are clearly laid out. Tunnel positioning is a challenge, and the most talked about problem. Tensioning techniques all vary, and they're all manual. And when you look at when you're in one of these procedures, you're going to see the surgeon relying on their team in the OR to help them get the job done, and that just adds another variable in the procedure that can cause some issues. And when you look at the ASC market, those hands aren't as readily available as a tertiary tier 1 hospital. We're developing a smart fixation system. So we're an enabling technology rather than a fixation device itself. We do have our own proprietary fixation device, but essentially we're developing a digital device that allows surgeons to precisely set the tension. The device also enables them to have a hands-free ability to perform this step of the surgery. And our digital device allows the surgeons to both tension and see the angle of the knee as they cycle through range of motion. We're developing a procedure kit solution that'll house fixation devices, a disposable tensioner, and we've got a proprietary software solution that will capture the intraoperative data and then connect with the patients post-operatively to really identify optimal tension for different patient cohorts, different ligaments or graft types that the surgeons will use. As I mentioned, we're active in Australia, and what we've been able to show so far is that we've got a technology that traverses throughout the procedure. We've done 13 cases now where we have surgeons have used the tensioner to set their tunnel position for procedures such as MPFL, lateral collateral, medial collateral ligament surgery. It's quick and easy. These procedures often rely on X-ray, which adds time, cost, and exposure to fluoroscopy, which for nursing and surgical staff is not great. We've got a really neat biomechanical experiment that we've done with Professor Bill Walsh here in Sydney and a group of orthopedic surgeons led by Dr. David Parker, who's the current past president of ISACOS. In that experiment, we got all surgeons to perform 5 individual manual maximum pull efforts, which is the technique that is most commonly adopted. And we got them to hold that maximum tension for 10 seconds. What we saw was that on average, 13% of that maximum tension was lost in that 10-second period. One surgeon lost up to 25% of their maximum tension. Whereas when they attached Tesa, they were able to set and hit a number. Tesa held that number. Obviously, you would get some relaxation in the tissue and the sutures, but then they were able to adjust that, and then they were able to adjust up further. I always like showing this graph because the surgeon took a phone call and the tensioner was able to hold that tension for around about 2 minutes while it was active. Probably the third and final feature that I love the most and the surgeons love is that they're hands-free. This is one of our early surgeries, and you can see the surgeon's off doing an ALL off to the side. Tesa's holding the ACL reconstructed, so keeping the knee stable. And this is the assistant standing off over to the left-hand side, hanging onto the patient's ankle. In the 37 cases, all the surgeons have commented on the hands-free functionality. The measuring component is a key component, particularly as we look at fixation devices. Many surgeons use adjustable loop technology, which takes time to settle in and to actually fixate. This has helped the surgeons get to a point where they've managed to remove that laxity before they've completed the surgery and fixated. And the learning curve is really quick. This is a 1 to 2 procedure learning curve, which is really neat. Really addresses the amount of time that you've got to spend in surgery to support the specific tensioner, and gives a really great usability for the surgeons. Companies raised 3.6 million. I've raised 3 million of that over the last period via a convertible note. We've been really capital efficient in getting to where we are. We've got our FDA notification on our analog tensioner. We've got a clear FDA pathway, 510K pathway for our fixation devices and our digital version, which will come about 12 months down the road from funding. We've got a really neat envelope of IP that's building. We fit into existing CPT codes and a very accepted model of procedure kit supply or disposables, which we also offer as well as a standalone tensioner. We've got great science. We've got experience on a clinical side. We're up to 37 cases here in Australia. We're going to do 2 more this morning. After I get off this call, I'm going to rush into one of the hospitals. And we've got another case happening tomorrow. So we've got good early activity. Importantly, our focus is the US market, obviously. We've got 10 KOLs who do around about 2,500 procedures annually. And within the institutions they work at, there's about another 4,000 ACLs. So we've got a really good capturable market off the get-go. We've spoken to a number of the surgeons who sit around our advisors who are really interested to use Tesa, which is exciting. When you look at the current trends, a lot of surgeons are either trying to adopt or wanting to adopt suture augmentation. The literature shows that it can really reduce failure rates. The reality is surgeons have to use extra fixation, and they're using a manual technique where they're guessing how tight to actually get the graft versus the suture augmentation. And we know that that's a barrier for adoption, because if you over tighten the suture augmentation, you're going to have a higher incidence of failures. So our solution gives a time zero saving for hospitals because of a novel fixation concept we've got, incorporated with a dual tensioner that allows them to independently tension both. And we've also got an opportunity to help surgeons to reduce revision rates. So we've got a potential here to also save the healthcare system. I mentioned earlier, we are helping surgeons. We've done 13 cases where they've used the device to set tunnel position for things like MPFL, ALL surgeries, which are growing in popularity. We all know X-ray is timely, both in the OR, and there's costs directly associated with it. This technique's quick, easy, helps surgeons remove that. And if you look at the literature, even though you use II, if you don't get the II, the C-arm in the right position, you're not necessarily going to be in the right spot for your tunnel position. and our device really helps surgeons dial that in. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel. We're trying to follow a very proven path to market, and some of the presenters today have spoken to that, where we're developing a procedure kit solution with an ASP of $1,300 per kit. As we start to scale, we've got 70% plus gross margin. We will also offer the tensioner as a standalone because that'll be required in certain places to build. We're working with some great venture partners. Core Medical Ventures is one of those who are well known within the industry. They've done an amazing job of taking the feedback and developing the system. And we're going to work with 1099 sales agents and distributors. We've got a number of distributors currently looking to take on the technology when we go live in this next month. Many of those are also looking at investing in the company in the current price round, which I think is really important. Let's get some skin in the game and let's do a good job together. ACL reconstruction and knee ligament surgery, it's a really big market. It's about $1 billion globally. Most of that happens in the US. We've got a really good footprint to be able to go after that and make an inroad within the solution. Ultimately, however, Tesa and the way we've designed this, it's a platform technology. Many of our surgeon advisors do shoulders, they do foot and ankle. Many of our surgeon investors in the company are shoulder surgeons or foot and ankle surgeons themselves. So they see great application for this outside of the knee. The reality is we're focusing on the knee first, but we've got a lot of places that we can go where surgeons want to use this technology because they're unhappy with how they're tensioning their grafts. This is a really active space. As many of you will know, the strategics are actively acquiring in this area and they're good acquisition prices. Smith & Nephew set a new bar for sports medicine when they acquired Integrity Orthopedics earlier this year at 450 total deal value as reported. So it's a really good space. We're under NDA with several of these companies and already presenting the technology to them in labs. So we're moving along there, and Chris Lyons, who's on the call, is one of our advisors and doing an amazing job helping us navigate the life cycle there. We've got a really experienced board and team, and as I mentioned, we've got a venture capital or venture studio model where Core Medical Ventures and Savvy Medical provide us scale and expertise that if we were a company, we'd have to hire people to do the jobs that they do. This is probably one of the keys to our success, both in Australia, but predominantly in the US. We've got amazing surgeons, tier 1 hospitals, well published. They've been guiding us along our journey and doing an amazing job and give us a great starting point for when we launch later in the year. As I mentioned, we're raising $5 million in an equity round. The goal here is to get the full launch out to the digital platform. We've been really capital efficient. We believe we can continue to be really capital efficient with doing this. We've got a view of how we ramp over time. Some of these numbers do incorporate partnering with some bigger scale entities over time, but I think this is a fairly reasonable look at things given the size of the market and the application of the device. And finally, that's it. I really appreciate the opportunity with TJ. And as I mentioned at the start, we're raising that $5 million equity round. Our pre-money value is $11 million. We've already got $2 million of that committed, which is exciting. And, there's definite potential for a 11.5 time return in the near term for investors who come into this current round. So, and hoping we can make a big difference to surgeons based on what we've seen already. So thanks, TJ.
All right, panel.
Hey,
Any questions?
Sean, nice job with that deck. That's a really nice job with it, and congratulations on the progress. It's been a while since I've gotten your update.
It looks great.
Yeah, it does. But can you tell me about the financing here piece of it? I think you said on financing that you have like $3 million that you'd raised on a convertible note. So is that included in the 5 that you're going to close, or is 5 the new money piece? Fresh capital.
Yeah, 5's the new money. So post this round, there'll be about 8.6 million invested in the company. All of the, probably importantly for all investors looking to come in, all the notes convert prior to the new money coming in.
Oh, good to know. So that's baked, that the note conversion is baked into the 11 million pre.
Yep.
I was going to ask one, unless Gary, you got any more? Because I
No,
know.
I'm gonna yield because we don't have much time. Go ahead.
Okay. Just real quick. Two questions. Do you have a plan relative to not just having distributors, but somebody to herd the sheep in the US and related to W-2s?
Yeah, no, great call out, Chris. Yeah, we've got two guys lined up. They're deep sports experience between the two of them, around about 30 years of sport experience. You know, we're really focused on giving our distributors and sales agents people who know the space well. They're ready to go. They're both invested in the company, and they've been connecting us with many of the surgeons.
Awesome.
Yeah.
For time's sake, I'll hold anything else.
Yeah, congrats. Just one question. In the deck that was distributed beforehand, it looked like you're ramping in year 2 and year 3, but your gross margins were declining somewhat. And I was curious as to whether there's a pricing opportunity once you're established in the market to raise prices, or whether you'll get some cost savings associated with more volumes from a manufacturing standpoint.
Yeah, no, it's a good pickup on that side of things. No, we do believe that our gross margin will continue to improve. I think it just depends on the blend of procedure kits that we bring in. You know, we do know that the digital device will be marginally more expensive. It's surprisingly not that much more expensive, but there is an impact there. So it's really just, I guess, that blending of things over time. And we also know that obviously pricing is decreasing across the board. So it sort of factors in that. So it's probably conservative numbers. I'm working with some smart people who are helping to keep this sales guy under control.
Yeah, I love conservative numbers.
Yeah.
And they still look pretty good. Okay.
All right, we got time for
Thanks,
one
Matt.
last question, if anyone has any.
What's been your
I don't wanna
strategic response? Because I know you've had some response from just strategics in general, no names, just what are their
Yeah.
perceptions?
Yeah, no, it's really interesting. They're all really interested in what we're doing. They see it's an unmet need. You know, I've had surgeons tell me that tensioning doesn't matter. And then through the progress we've made, they've invested their own money and they've invested their own patience and their time in the technology. So the strategics are seeing the same thing, Chris. You know, we've been talking to them for a while, and they're definitely coming to the table. They'll like what we're doing.
Thanks. Good job.
Thank you. Cheers.
Thanks, Sujit. Thanks, Duncan. And thanks to Gary Stevenson, Chris Lyons, and Matt Likens for joining us on the panel. And to you, the rest of the audience, thanks to everyone who joined in. If you have any questions, be sure to reach out to Sujit, Duncan, or Sean, or myself at MSK Innovations. Thanks again for joining. Please reach out, any questions, and we hope you have a wonderful night. Take care, everyone.
Thanks, TJ.
TJ.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks all. Thanks, Steve.